Welcome back to Lupo Outdoors. In this episode, we're actually going to install this full-length rail and remove the short rails that are on the Benelli Lupo. The issue we have is we want to install this quick-release scope mount on the Benelli Lupo, but there's only two Picatinny rails here, and it just barely covers one of the edges on each side. So what we did is we purchased a full-length rail, and we're going to go through the process of removing these rails and installing this full-length rail, including putting on Loctite and the proper way to screw these on. Now the Lupo has two screws here, and then there's two screws here in the center. So we'll remove these two parts here. We're going to remove this rail system and we're going to remove this rail system, and we'll go through the process. This is the EGW Hunter. Now this rail is specifically designed for the Benelli Lupo. So this is what we're going to use. What's nice is that it actually comes with the torque bit and the screws you need. It's tapered at one end and it's flat on the other. So we're going to go over which side that's supposed to go on. What we're going to do first is we're going to remove the old rails on the Benelli Lupo, but we're going to use the torque wrench. See the screws inside the bag here, because really what I want to do is I just want to get these old rails off and prep this for the actual process. This torque wrench doesn't fit the screws on the Benelli Lupo, so we're going to grab the right torque wrench to remove these old Picatinny rails that are on here. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the old Picatinny rails from the Benelli Lupo. If I can fucking get this to work, excuse me. So you're not going to use the torque wrench to remove the screws. You're going to use a normal screwdriver setup with the proper torque wrench. We're going to put it in here and loosen and remove these screws. Now what you'll notice on this is I have two rails, and then there's two dimples here that are covered with rubber. You remove those because that's going to be the other location for the screws. 3 screws on each of these rails, so we're going to remove all 3. When you look at the Lupo, there's 2 here and 1 screw there. And then I removed the little rubber plugs that are right here. And then when we look at this rail, you'll see that there's 2 here, 2 in the center, and 2 back here. So instead of 3 screws on the ends, we're only going to have 2. Now these screws are in very tight. Of course they're going to be. But not impossible to remove. Now there's a flat end and a concaved end here. This part where you see an angle comes back towards the butt end of the stock, and the flat end here goes towards the front of the Benelli. Now when these screws line up, the first and last here, these 2, and then it's going to be the first and last over here. So normally what you would want to do before you install a rail is thoroughly clean all of this right here. This rifle is brand new, it's never been shot, there's no grime on there, although I just put my fingerprints on it, but that's not going to be a big deal. And what you're going to do is get the screws, which are right here, and get prepared to install them. There are 6 screws. Or I'm sorry, there are 5 screws. And 2 spares. So we're going to install all the screws on this. Now, this is where you're going to use the torque wrench. This requires 20 pounds of pull. So when you look at the torque wrench, you'll see a red line, and you're going to line that red line up with the 20, and that means it's going to be set at 20 pounds as torque. Torque wrench is set at 20. This is the tip that we were given, and here's our Loctite. So knowing that this is going to line up right here, we're going to put this on, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to put 1 screw in to kind of put it in place with a small drop of Loctite. So at this point, we're just going to put the first screw in, and we're going to mildly tighten it just to get some form. When we get to the point where we're going to actually install and tighten them down, you'll see what happens. Now there's actually a process for tightening these, and we'll go over that in a second. Right now, we're not tightening these. We're just putting a little bit of pressure. And we don't want to take too much time in doing this, because when it comes down to brass tacks, Loctite is in the process of gripping with everything else. So we do have plenty of screws. And this one goes here. Now, when you actually are ready to tighten these, all right, that's hand tightened. You're going to start with this back one here. And you're going to turn until you hear that click. And then you're going to skip and go to the center one. And turn till you hear that click. And then skip and go to the next one. And get that click. Now, starting over here, tighten that one up. Go to the next one, skipping each bolt. And then going to the last. Now, each of these has been tightened at 20 like the recommendation. So that rail is dead on. What we'll do is we're going to wipe away the excess moisture on the Loctite, and that is done. You can place this anywhere on here and it'll fit snugly. Everything will work just fine. Hope you enjoyed that video and actually learned something. Remember, when installing rails, always use a torque wrench. If you don't have one, go get one, because you'll be sorry later if you don't. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Remember to hit that bell icon, and we'll see you soon on another video.